Group 15 book discussion.
I'm Ava Fields, and I'm reading Murder on the Orient Express.
My name is Winnie Edquist, and I'm reading The Reader.
And my name is Grace Kroc, and I'm reading Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So we went over common themes about each of our books, and the first common theme that we have is murder and horror fiction.
Yes. I think a lot of the reason why our books are so similar is because the genre, thriller and murder mysteries, they just kind of have all common stereotypes and tropes that occur. Like, for instance, in mine, there's a murder mystery, and we have the intelligent detective that kind of knows everything, and the main suspect, and all that kind of stuff. Do you guys have similar?
Yeah, so in my book, the main theme or thing that in the plot that happens is there's this mysterious character that gets in a relationship with someone and doesn't really share much about their personal life, and then they kind of go into disappearance, and then the rest of the book is kind of them figuring out what the disappearance is, and that relates to the whole horror mystery thing because we don't really know what happened to the person, and it's we're figuring it out, and there's some big thing that's revealed at the end as to why they went missing.
My book is leaning towards horror fiction with the eerie atmosphere going on with the entire novel. What happens is that Victor, the main character, he creates this creation of his that turns alive, and basically his creation is what becomes his source of terror, and it's shown all over his narrative, and Victor grapples with the monster's appearance, and he also thinks that his creation is responsible for the death of his loved ones. So murder is also seen in this horror fiction.
Another thing that is kind of common between all of our books is plot twists. I know in mine is the person who is murdered actually turns out to be a kind of a bad guy. He's involved in this kidnapping case from years back, and everyone there knows about it because it was so huge, and people didn't really like this guy that much, and so everyone kind of had a common reason why they would want him dead. So it's just kind of plot twists.
For my book, murder also sets the entire tone of the story, where the monster kills William, which is Victor's younger brother, and he also sets death up with the family servant, targeting the family servant and also ending up making her play as the murderer when in reality the monster was the murderer. And this outcome really set the entire story because Victor realizes his creation is destructive.
For the plot twist in my book, the main plot twist of the first half, before the person went missing, was that it was kind of there was an age difference. There was an age difference relationship, and I think the biggest plot twist is whenever that kind of launched into happening because no one expected for well, it's a 15-year-old and a 35-year-old, which is kind of crazy. And whenever they had initiated their relationship, it was kind of what are we doing? So it was kind of a big plot twist. And then also the obvious one where the lady kind of went missing, but we haven't really delved into that in my book yet.
For my plot twist, the monster is thought to be just purely vengeful and destructive and murderous, but he turns out to have some showing of emotions and empathy, where he asked Victor if he could create a female companion for him. This showcases he's capable of complex emotions, such as loneliness and desire for relationship, which turns out to be a major plot twist in the novel.
I noticed that all of ours also include grief within them. But in mine it's kind of in this more complex way because people really don't feel that much grief for the actual victim of the murder. They feel grief for the victim's victim, which is a kidnapping that happened many years ago, and that's kind of why everyone it's so hard to track down one person who had a motive. It's because everyone really does feel bad for the family, and they're from America, and like everyone knows about them because like it's just like such a big thing, and everyone feels bad for that family, and so everyone has a reason why they would want him to not be alive.
My novel also links to grief because of how Victor mourns for the death of his cousin and the family servant, which the family loved so much and cherished so much about. This grief is basically because that he has this realization that his creation is what caused all of the death and hard times for his family, and he has this feeling that he's objected to being the source of anguish for all what's happening in his life.
Mine also has a lot of like things of grief, and to bounce off what Grace said earlier about how her character was kind of like longing for like a friend and like loneliness. Mine kind of relates a lot to that because the main character in my book, he's seeking out this relationship with this older woman because he kind of feels lonely in his own life. And that's kind of like what Grace said about her monster not really, like people wouldn't expect it to have emotions and feelings, but it did. And the thing with grief for mine is whenever the lady goes disappearing, the guy has kind of like put his whole like meaning of self into this one lady, and so whenever she kind of disappears and he didn't really know anything about it, it kind of like takes a toll on him. And because he put like so much, like he was lonely before, and then he just put all of himself into this one relationship with this lady, and so whenever it was gone, it was kind of like a really big toll on him.
I think all of our story also links with revenge. For example, my main character blames himself. Sorry, no. My main character, the monster, he seeks revenge for Victor abandoning him for being his creation, and he feels horrible because he knows that he looks like a monster, that he does not look like he'll be accepted by society, and he's aware of that, but his actions are driven based on how he feels hurt from Victor making that experience worse for him.
Mine personally, it never really fully says that it was a revenge murder, yet it's implied because of his prior wrongdoings before his murder. And so it's kind of thought that which it might be a plot twist that it's not a revenge murder and there's another reason why. But the main reason is because he did all these bad things and it's all catching up to him, and people are tracking him down because he had been getting threats in the mail for many days prior to the murder, and so it's thought that is related to the case from a while back.
And the kind of notes of revenge in my book is whenever the girl goes missing, a couple days before the guy had ignored the girl in public, and then after that he kind of felt really, really bad about it, and then she went missing. So afterward he kind of blamed himself, and he was like, oh, this must be revenge for me ignoring her in public, which it probably wasn't, but he just blamed himself because he didn't know what else to do, and he hasn't found out the reasoning behind the girl's disappearance yet, and so he's just kind of trying to find that reason.
I know that in mine personally it doesn't really include it much, but I know that in the other one there's a lot of in theirs from whatever it includes obsession from the relationship and ambition. Mine personally though, in contrast to that, doesn't, because it's just I don't know, the detective, he's invested in it, but he's not really obsessed with the case, and there was really that's why it was so out of the blue, is the only really obsession was whoever the murderer is, but we haven't figured that out yet.
For my book, there's a lot of ambition and obsession regarding about the novel. For example, Victor's obsession with making an inanimate object turn into life really made him neglect his own needs, his own personal needs, such as eating and like staying healthy and like staying in contact with his family, but he neglects all of that, and then his ambition is what really helped him defy the laws of nature and like master like life and death. This led to like him creating the creation of the monster, and his unchecked ambition led to him having tragic consequences later in his story.
The thing with obsession in mine is like that's basically the whole first part of the book. So since we've only read half of the book, the whole first half was just him being obsessed with this girl, and then us not really knowing much about the girl because she was very secretive the whole time, and that just kind of led him to be more obsessed with her. So not only did they have like this romantic relationship and it was really unhealthy, but they also had a relationship where he was just trying to find out more about her and she would never give up any information. And so the whole first book is really him just being really obsessed with her and putting all his time and energy into her and her not really giving anything back. And I feel like that'll be more, the truth behind that will be more unfolded later in the book. But for now, we just know that it was a mysterious lady and she just disappeared. And it's weird.
I think a lot of, like, all of ours have, like, main tropes or, like, characters that kind of fit, like, a stereotypical role. Like, mine personally, like, the detective is very, like you would see in, like, a murder mystery movie or, like, what you'd think of whenever you think of a murder mystery book is, like, my character is very, like, calm, cool, and collected, and, like, he's really, like, he's picking up things all the time, and, like, he really knows what he's doing, and a lot of the characters run straight to him, but also, like, we haven't really found out, like, why he's on the train to begin with, and like so many different things, and I bet they'll probably reveal it at the end, like other classic murder mysteries.
Linking to Ava's and Winnie's relationship tropes, especially with Winnie's, my book also highlights the relationship between Victor and the monster, based on how Victor is basically the creator, and then the monster is the neglected creation, where they both feel very complex emotions such as like revenge and like just like isolation, and like negligence plays a huge role in my novel.
Another thing that I want to touch on is I find it interesting. So not only is there like similarities in all of our books, but there's also huge differences. Like for example, both of theirs have like murder in theirs, and mine only has one disappearance, and it's not even like confirmed that it's a murder, or if it's like bigger than just that she disappeared. And I find it interesting that like our books are different in that sense, because there's like definitely more to like dive into, like based off like how they disappeared and stuff. And I just think the difference between our books is interesting, because you can't, it like it emphasizes that you don't need like a murder or a big something to happen for it to be considered a mystery book, because nothing in my book really happened until the halfway point, but it's still a mystery, which is interesting.
Mine personally, like, I mean, I don't know about Grace's, but the murder in mine was definitely premeditated, which, like, I don't know if yours is also kind of like that, where, like, you can definitely tell that there's some build-up to that or not. But I would say that that's also, like, a kind of a difference between all of our books, is, like, just, like, the way that it was happened, and, like, and how, yeah.
Linking with Ava's statement, yes, my story has a lot of build-up to the murder. There are two narratives, which is the main narrative being Victor, and then the secondary narrative being the monster. The monster killed his younger cousin just because of how he felt that Victor, being the neglectful creator that he is, deserved that, because he wouldn't do anything for the monster. He wouldn't take care of him. He wouldn't like go anywhere near his creation. So he felt that he had this driven nature of like becoming violent just because of how he like nurtured. This led to the buildup of him murdering his cousin and also framing the family servant for that murder.
Which, and also, in what you just said, it sounds like there's a lot of like kind of like butterfly effect, like this happens, which causes this, which I would say is also very like true in my book. Like his kidnapping of a kid a long time back caused people to hate him, which caused the murder, which caused where we are in the book right now, where we're trying to figure out who the murderer is, and well, I mean, it's not that hard to figure out why, because he did all this bad stuff. He has so many people who want him dead. And also, like, they made it very clear in the book that, like, no one really cared for him that much because he was kind of just, like, a stuck-up and, like, mean person, generally, which is another thing. Like, he has an assistant named Armstrong, Mr. Armstrong, and he admitted openly to not liking his boss because his boss is just very mean and selfish.
Anything to add on?